Hello, fellow patriots, and welcome back to another episode of Red, Rights, and You, where we remind you that common sense isn't dead. It's just been temporarily hijacked by the left. I'm Tim Andrews, and things continue to move at the speed of Trump, so there's no shortage of topics to discuss here today. Now, President Trump addressed Congress, and as expected, the Democrats responded with an unhinged, desperate, psychotic meltdown. Bingo paddles, check. Interruptions, of course. And Texas Congressman Al Green, well, he went full angry, get off my lawn, grandpa, waving his cane and yelling before getting escorted out like a drunk at a wedding. Now, only 10 Democrats had the spine to vote for his censure because apparently throwing a tantrum on national television is now a point of pride. But the real lowlights, the left sat on their hands when Trump honored a 13-year-old cancer warrior, ignored the grieving parents of victims of illegal immigrant crime, and couldn't even muster a clap for the young man who worked his tail off to get into West Point and was told right there live that his application was accepted by the president. But don't worry, they did manage to coordinate their pink outfits because nothing says women's rights like voting to let men dominate women's sports. And then to ice the rainbow cake, they decided to release a cringe-worthy choose your fighter video afterwards. I don't even know what's worse, to be honest. The fact that these are actual elected officials or that millions of people actually chose them to represent them. Either way, it's embarrassing. We'll also dive into the chaos at our universities where pro-Palestinian agitators are throwing another round of protests and building takeovers. Only this time, President Trump has decided to cut the funding. About time. Plus, his ultimatum to Hamas after seeing the horrific state of released hostages, and then why Zelensky is backtracking after his awkward Oval Office encounter with Trump. And of course, we'll hit the latest in tariffs, trade wars, and why Democrats pretend to even care about the economy when they're not too busy making TikTok videos. So, let's get into it. I'm honored once again to be joined by Mark Mosgrove. I guess that's your name, right? Hi, Mark. How are you today?
That's the name that was given to me at birth. We're going to stick with it.
So let's start with the old address to Congress there. What do you think about that whole rigmarole with our friends on the...
It was pretty pathetic. It was disgraceful. The whole sign bit was a joke. I actually got one of the signs that was there.
Boy.
From the floor. Apparently they didn't use it because there was a misspelling. But this is one of them.
I'm surprised they weren't all holding that one up.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but this one would have basically covered it all. And then, stupid. They had a committee meeting on how to spell stupid. It's stupid. Stupid. S-U-P-E-D, stupid, right?
Well, if they say it's true.
Last minute, and it cost $23,000 to print this sign of your government money. Now that I'm just making up.
But if they say it's true, it's got to be true, right? Right. I have kind of a theory about this whole thing. All this crazy stuff that they're doing. They have to realize they're making fools of themselves and that they look like idiots. I'm just wondering if it's almost like a planned distraction, because I think what really got to him is Trump got in there and he is moving so fast that they're afraid he's breathing down their necks. Because I have a feeling, it's just a hunch here, but a lot of these squeaky wheels especially are the ones that have a lot to hide. I think things are going on and they're afraid they might get caught with their hands in the cookie jar. What do you think about that?
Well, there's actually an example of that, and I can pull it up here in a second, of one of the outspoken senators who actually, it's coming out about his wife and getting all kinds of money and contracts indirectly. But before I do that, back to the signs, is next year if they do the signs, I mean, basically they were doing the signs because Trump is bad, and that Trump is more bad than anything else on their agenda. That is their agenda. Trump is bad. So next year, if they do the sign bit, they should just come up with this sign right here and say, okay, you tell me where Donald Trump hurt you. Point to where he hurt you. Because that's all they got. That's all they have is that Trump is bad. In fact, I saw something on, I don't remember which show, where they were on the street and they were asking people on the street, what do you think about this, this, and this? And everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Then they say, well, that's what Trump wants to do. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, that's not a good idea. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. It's amazing. I'll tell you what really astounds me is that they're all hanging on that 20%. They're not going with things that most people believe in. They're going the complete opposite because Trump is siding with that 80%. So they're like, no, we really believe that men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. Oh, but they're getting their heads bashed in. That they're being paralyzed by spikes and volleyball brain injuries and this and that. And no, that's our issue. We're sticking with it. If you don't want that, then it's all an equality issue. However they twist these things, it's just amazing. They just keep digging another shovelful of dirt out of their grave.
Well, what I don't understand is, being a child of the 70s, I was born in 68. You are quite a bit older than me. I'm sorry.
Way older.
And you
I knew
always
your
will.
grandparents. I was friends with your grandpa in high school.
Yeah, you could almost be my dad. But, women's rights and feminism and all those movements were very prevalent in the 70s. And it's like it's all been forgotten because we have Proposition 9, where girls have the same numbers of opportunities in sports as boys. Now, how is allowing a biological boy, how does that work with Proposition 9? To me, it seems like it's in conflict because each school is supposed to have so many scholarships for girls, for boys. How does all that work? Does that mean Proposition 9 no longer matters? I mean, I saw Dana Perino the other day say they ought to do it up and down vote on do they believe in Proposition 9, which is that girls have the same numbers of opportunities as boys do in sports. Because the trans thing doesn't seem to jive with that. I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. But getting back to this senator, it just was out today. Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. He's one of those guys that have been out there a lot really against Doge and Elon Musk. And it just came out today where his wife has made a lot of money through the years on ocean related things, where there'll be like $1 million here, 2 million here for grants for this organization, for that organization to like clean up the ocean. And then she's all part of that industry. So he's proposed a lot of things about the oceans, and in and of itself, that's fine. But the thing of it is the money ends up going to his wife. Now, the Dems are saying it's all legit because he didn't do anything wrong, but it's all kind of a little bit of a shell game. And my head hurts when I read the article on like he became a senator in 2006 or whatever it was, and then she takes a position at 2007, and then grant money is given an organization, but then she is a vendor of that organization, and all this money is being made on cleaning the ocean. But I'm wondering, did they do anything to clean the ocean all these years? Or is it all just doing speaking engagements, getting paid $50,000 or whatever for speaking engagements, telling everybody that, yes, we need to clean the oceans? I mean, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it looks shady. And I think there's a lot of that goes on, and that's what we talked about before, about the bureaucracy. People are making money off of these things, and you probably could find every single thing, and someone's making money off of it somehow, indirectly.
I was just going to say, do you think that's the rule or the exception? I think that's the rule.
It's most. I think it's a whole culture DC culture of, and the Republicans do it too. There's been a lot. In fact, this West, what's his name? I forgot now. Westmore or whatever his name is. He was criticizing Clarence Thomas's wife for working in organizations and making money off of the politics. All the while, his wife's been doing the same thing, and that's the thing that really infuriates people is you go up there that you have the moral superiority and you're doing the same thing, right, or even doing it worse.
Right.
There's so much
of
that.
Just like I checked with all the, the politicians and their net worth versus what they make. Yeah, the Republicans, there was a few fishy ones there too. Majority were like by far like 4 or 5 times, their net worth were the Democrats. But there's no such thing as a squeaky clean politician. They don't like Trump because he's a businessman, and everybody freaks out because he's selling this. You always see that, right? On Fox and everything. They're selling coloring books and they're selling Bibles and they're selling. I just saw a fish that looked like President Trump, one of those talking fishes. So they're making money, okay?
Yeah.
But I'd rather see somebody schlocking stuff and making money that way, and people know what they're buying, than people just going behind the curtain and scraping money off the top of everybody's tax money. That's not buying, that's stealing. I know a young man that I'm hoping to have on the podcast soon. He just dipped his toe in politics. He was running for council or something, low level position. And he just got a really sour taste in his mouth. He said, Tim, it's really a dirty, horrible sandbox you're playing in. I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. Are there some good people? Absolutely. There's some good everywhere. But he said, for the most part, it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. I'll tell you one thing good that did come out of this, Mark, that I've discovered is we found out where all the people that went to Woodstock ended up, because they have revived the folk song. Yeah, that guy gets up with the gray hair and playing the guitar, and I was fully expecting to hear, well, it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? It's bad, but it's folk music.
I don't know, but those people sounded like they were dead as they were singing.
My grandmother, back in the late 60s, I was really young, bought me a pair of socks, and it was a hippie with a guitar on the socks. It said, folk art, folk dancing, folk music, folk everything. My grandma, she had no clue, but it was hilarious. Let's move on to some other subjects. We got so much going on. We're not going to have a lot of time to cover these, but I just wanted to skim over a few things and get a quick opinion, and then we'll get out of here. The Palestinian protests are back on the college campuses. Opinion on that real quick.
Well, it's because it's getting warmer, because no protester will protest when it's cold out. It's got to be warm, because they stand up for what they stand up for, but it's got to be warmer. It's got to be catered.
Yeah, I love it when they're passing the food up through the windows. These are real rebels.
Yes, catered meal to come there, and they all have their faces covered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's can't. Brave.
Yeah, that's real brave. It's real brave. Just like the people who are mean on the internet. And I get a fair amount of that with my business. You just think you can be mean because you're anonymous, I guess. I don't know. But my wife was in a car accident the other day in an urban area, and nobody helped her. Yeah. The people that were on the street and saw it, they all stopped and they videotaped it.
Yeah.
Videotaped everything and just stood there. She could have been dead, could have needed help. They were more interested in getting a viral video.
Well, she didn't have a Trump bumper sticker on her car, did she?
No, she had no bumper sticker.
Because if she would have, they'd have probably drug her out of the seat and hung her in the middle of town if they were in a blue area.
They might have. I don't.
People are cruel.
But I tell you, the quality of people it's just gone down the toilet. Our society just basically sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't see how it's going to get any better. I mean, the Bible says in end times, brother is going to be against brother. I mean, I have experience with that, with family betrayal and that sort of thing. It's just bad. And then you stand up for yourself and you're demonized. Tracy had a couple friends that she'd had for over 30 years, and they got upset because she voted for Trump, and they took her off their Facebook page. Yeah. We sit there and we watch everybody else post on Facebook. You post one thing that they don't agree with, you're evil, you're a demon, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're cut off.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but it tends to be mostly from the liberal side, who are supposed to be the people who are tolerant of ideas and everything like that.
Right.
I've not experienced that when it comes to liberals. My experience has always been is they're very judgmental.
Yeah.
Because you know what? No one has the moral high ground. It's very easy for us, and we can fall into this too, is, oh, we're Republicans, all those Democrats are bad. And we're making fun of them and we're pointing out their hypocrisy. And it's true. But people are people. And for someone to think you're bad because you voted for Trump and I can never speak to you again, that doesn't speak to the person who voted for Trump. That speaks to that person.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? You can't handle someone having a different opinion than you?
And I think a
Really?
big part of it, Mark, is it's so segmented right down the middle. A friend of mine called, he's an actor out in Hollywood. I've known him for a long time. He called me and he said, Tim, what do you think about Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute? And I said, that's not really a Nazi. He was actually saying, from the heart, and waving. And I said, Walls did it, and a lot of folks on the
Elizabeth Warren did
Democratic
it.
side, they've all done it. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that. And I said, let me guess. You
I
don't
wonder
watch
why.
Fox News, right?
Yeah.
He goes, you got me there. So I think we all need to see both perspectives and see what's going on. What kills me is mainstream media. If it's something that might promote Trump or look good for Trump, they just won't report on it. Probably Fox News is a little guilty of that too. It's very one-sided on both sides of the aisle. I always make it a point to turn on, as much as it pains me, MSNBC or CNN or something like that, just to kind of get some other perspectives, or at least hear what the other side on the left is hearing. So you're not that naive when it comes to what's going on. He just asked an honest question, but I tell him my son's very liberal too. I would love to have folks on here with liberal viewpoints, but you got to be reasonable, and it can't just be because Trump's an asshole or they're just horrible. I want to hear, okay, what is that based on? What facts do you have to back that all up? Because if we can have an intelligent conversation, I'm all for it. And this gentleman offered a different viewpoint. He's African American, and his parents and grandparents gave him a whole experience from what happened. They were descendants of slaves, and some of the things that he told me were riveting. And it's like, wow, I really never thought of it that way. I could completely understand how you think that. But we don't do enough of that. I told my son, you can argue with me, you can call people names or say Republicans this or conservatives that, but at the end of the day, once our conversation is done, I want to be able to say, Rob, I love you. It was good talking with you again. I'm blessed enough to have a couple people in my life, and one of them, Ronaldo is his name, over in the West Coast, helped me out at a time when I really needed help. And it's just a good person, because that's really what matters, is what's in here, not what we wear on our sleeve or the signs we put in our yards. Is what we have in here. So I really hope, as we move forward, we can get some viewpoints and really have discussions. But a discussion isn't, this is what it is, you're wrong, I'm right, and that's just the end of it.
Right.
That doesn't accomplish anything, and you can't have a healthy discussion there. You may have a healthy discussion and still completely disagree. Maybe you'll have a little bit of enlightenment there from the other side, or maybe you won't. But at least you've had an intelligent, healthy discussion on everything. And that's how I feel. So let's talk a little bit about Ukraine. Zelensky's circling back. Do you see a peace agreement coming there soon? But now, of course, Zelensky showed a little weakness. Trump kind of slapped him on the wrist. And the result of that is Putin went in full bore and is just bombing the hell out of the place and, just making it a wasteland. So now Trump's got to go in and possibly put sanctions on Russia. I can see them getting to the table and getting that thing done. It's just a matter of if Putin wants to stop. I don't think either side are angels. Ukraine has long had a reputation of being a corrupt and criminal country. I'm not a Putin supporter in any way, shape, or form, but you can say what you want. You just don't sit back in your chair like this and go, you know what? I think just for shits and giggles, I'm going to go invade Ukraine today and take that country over and kill thousands of people. You know, just like a divorce. You and I have both been married. There's always two sides to every story.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, people tend to forget that Trump and Zelensky kind of go back because the first impeachment stemmed from Ukraine and Zelensky. And it all started because something about Biden and Hunter with what was going on with their entanglements with Ukraine, and then Trump trying to find out about it. But then in Trump trying to find out about it, there was that recording with him and Zelensky, I think it was, if I remember right, which, you know, they did the narrow view of things to basically say he was trying to, I don't even remember now exactly what the charge was, is that he was trying to bribe Ukraine or something like, I don't even remember what it was, but it all stemmed from the Ukrainian shady dealings in the first place. So that, I mean, you're right, that's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact Trump got impeached because he had a call with Zelensky, people kind of forget about that.
Yeah. Probably not half the history that he had with Biden, but I think that'll all come out the wash. I think there was a lot of payola going on there.
Well, Trump, it's my understanding, and I might be wrong, it's my understanding Trump was trying to get to the bottom of what Biden's dealings were.
Yeah.
And that's how it all kind of got all. Anyway.
Yep.
But Putin's not going to take his ball and go home.
Right. Right. I agree.
They illegally annexed the parts of Ukraine that they have taken. And they did that like 2 years ago. Nobody's going to say, okay, now Russia, you were bad. You were bad boys.
Yeah.
You go back. You go back now. You take your ball and you go back.
Yeah.
No. They're not. That's like I said last week. Ukraine, if they think they're getting their whole country back, they're not. They'd have to make it so worth Russia's while to withdraw. Because they're not going to withdraw because the world says, you're bad, Putin. Because he doesn't care about that. Because if he cared about that, he wouldn't have invaded them in the first place.
And you know
what I'm saying?
And one thing about Ukraine, they're very rich in the minerals and everything else too. Agriculture, the whole thing. There's a lot of money to be made there. And I don't think Putin's going to say, okay, U.S., go ahead and take all the minerals. And they're controlling some of those areas. If he's going to give up territory, he's certainly not going to give up the territory where the rare minerals and things are, where they can make money, especially after losing all the equipment, artillery and military equipment, lives and everything else that they did. They're going to have to recoup. Of course, lives, I think, are down here on the totem pole. The money and equipment are up here. So he's going to want to recoup all that. But I see there being a little bit of resistance there. And then we're talking a little bit about tariffs. I know they're saying Trump with the up and down tariffs. And there's a couple of things. We'll just kind of put them all into one here. But the up and down tariffs and Doge, where Trump has changed his mind. Now he doesn't want to go in with the chainsaw or the axe. He wants to go in with the scalpel. And he wants to get his cabinet more involved with Elon Musk and actually discussing that. Of course, he's getting criticized. Are you going to go up or down? I give him credit for being able to think on the fly. I think what happened is he got in there and he's like, I want to make good on my campaign promises. I just want to bang, bang, bang. And he's moving fast, but it's a little reckless. Some people are getting let go that are good, legitimate people. And this might be a little bit slower, but everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants to cut waste. But why not talk to Rubio and talk to Hegseth and all these people and, you know, get some of that information and then make the decision based on the waste that Elon Musk is finding. So I think it's good to maybe tap the brakes a little bit You can still go through it pretty quickly, but you got time. I know he doesn't want to waste time, but you can still make this a really quick process. I think he's going to waste more time doubling back and rehiring people, right? That they let go and say, oh, wait, that they weren't one of the people that weren't working, than just going through and taking a little bit more time and finding out who is and isn't working and doing their job in the first place. Same with the tariffs. I love the reciprocal tariffs. I think that's the best way to go. And he is backing up a little bit on some of these higher tariffs. All it has to be is fair. So those are the things that I think he's changing up a little bit and backing off, even though the Dems are saying he's indecisive. They are just grasping and clawing at every little thing that they can. But what has it been? Not even 60 days. It's not even been enough time for these things to take hold. Some things, yes, it can happen, but the economy, cost of eggs, all those kind of things, all that is going to take a little bit of time. You know what? If the tariffs are going along and the prices are going way up and we see it, I truly believe that Trump's not the kind of president that's going to go, oh, yeah, I'll just keep letting the prices go up. He wants to have his legacy. And that means he wants the people to approve of what he's doing, and the people that don't approve of what he's doing, convert them so they say, hey, this worked. It's the end game. So if it started to look really bad for him, I think he'd be the first person to say, let's try doing this now. I think that's what he's looking at with these tariffs and with the budget cuts and getting the waste out of there. So I think to take a closer look, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I think that the problem is Musk, by owning X, but just in general, he says whatever he thinks at the moment, and he is used to being the leader, and I think he gets ahead of his skis a little bit.
Yeah.
On some of the stuff that he says and does. And Trump's kind of giving him free reign. Like we talked about before, he's working under Trump's authority. Trump can pull the authority like that. So it does look a little haphazard. I get that. I think he wanted to have a shock and awe campaign. He wanted to come in and really shake things up. And you got to admit, it's got people talking about things. It's got people rethinking lots of things as far as how the government spends their money and on tariffs. But I mean, a week or two ago, Howard Lutnick, one of his cabinet members, basically laid out the plan. The plan we're $1.8 trillion deficit per year. So just round it to $2 trillion. I mean, that's not sustainable. And he basically said we need to cut $1 trillion a year and we need to raise $1 trillion a year. Balanced budget. Now, that sounds really easy to say. We're going to cut $1 trillion, we're going to add $1 trillion. But part of the cutting the trillion was the Doge part. Part of the adding the trillion was the tariffs, because that money goes to the federal government.
Yep.
It also was the $1 million cards, green cards. Because they did the math. If they sold 200,000 of them equals $1 trillion? I
something have like that. Handy. Yeah.
So if you could sell 200,000 of them a year, you've raised $1 trillion. And if you've cut $1 trillion, you have a balanced budget. Now that would be amazing for a president to go from a 1.8 trillion a year deficit to balanced by the time they're out of office. That would be historic.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's their plan. But Trump also knows if he doesn't get it together here in this first 2 years, they lose the House in the midterms, he's not going to get anything done the next 2 years. Right. So there is a time factor to this.
$100 billion that they've saved so far, and everybody goes, well, that's a drop in the bucket. Hey, it's been 45 days.
Got to start somewhere.
You know what I mean? 45 days. Has anybody done the math? And if every 45 days he saves $100 billion, 150 days is $1 trillion, right? Something like that.
Well, it's just like your house. Your budget on your house is, you want to come up with let's see, getting out of debt, or you want to build your nest egg or what have you, somehow you got to either make more or spend less. Cutting Netflix, oh, it's only $25 or whatever, but that's 25 a month, and then this is 10 a month, and this is that a month, and we eat out this amount of times a month, and if we cut back on the amount of times we eat, and if we do this and we do that, it all starts to add up. And everybody as an adult knows that because you deal with that every day. But the federal government doesn't have to think of that or deal with that. It just is. It just lives. It's got a life of its own, and Trump is trying to get it under control. But for the Democrats just to sit there and say no to everything is irresponsible, because basically what they're saying is we want to go broke. We want to have deficits. We want our country to not have a positive future. What side of history do you want to be on here? Do you want to be on the side of history that your children or grandchildren they're not as good off as you are? I mean, come on. And part of the problem too is I hate to say it, and I hate getting into the demographics or whatever, but especially with the Democratic Party, it's too top heavy on baby boomer age people. They're not thinking too much about their Social Security and that sort of thing because they're already getting it.
Right.
I mean, it's not lost on me that the year that Social Security goes insolvent is the year that I can start collecting it. Nobody's thinking about that. Nobody cares, because Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer and all those older folks. I love older folks. Older folks are great. Much respect to them. But they're not thinking about where we're going to be 50 years from now.
Yeah, and I don't think it would affect them too badly either way if they got Social Security or not. I think they're doing pretty well.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure, but aren't most federal employees aren't in Social Security? Aren't they in their own in their own things?
I'm sure teachers, they are.
I know teachers have teachers retirement. They're not in Social Security.
You go in there if you're a congressman, I think it's like even for a day or a week or whatever it is, and you leave for whatever reason, you have full benefits for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
it's not like normal people. But we're going to find out as time goes on and things get investigated, there are going to be a lot of stones unturned, and there's going to be a lot of surprises. But they're trying to do whatever they can. They're so desperate that they're just clawing at everything, trying to tear everything down. And they want so badly to ruin Trump's credibility. Because then when things start happening, they're going to go back and say, oh, no, this is just him. He's just biased and blah, blah, blah. They all know they're guilty. And like you said, there's nothing that's squeaky clean about government, but they've been in power for too long, man. There was that brief time when Trump was in there, but then what was it, the last 16 out of 20 years or whatever it was? I'm not exactly sure, but for the majority of time. And, when a party like that has absolute power, what is it they say? That it corrupts absolutely, right? So they're in there with all their henchmen and their cronies and Soros, and they have all these outside influences getting involved. It just degraded. And before you know it, it's like a cartel in there. Like I always say, they make the mafia look like Boy Scouts. Their biggest mistake, Mark, is they've always been able to let the mainstream media cover up for them. And now it's not quite that easy because we have all these alternate sources where people are getting their news from social media and things like that. You just can't hide this stuff anymore. It's all going to come out eventually. It's like a house of cards. Once these things start coming out more and more, that thing's going to collapse. When it all comes out, it's almost like having all that information and have the truth might not be a good thing. The people are so used to living oblivious to what's going on and just saying, okay, that's going on over there, but I'll just keep living my life over here. It's like the Matrix. Remember the Matrix when he found out what was really going on? That's an extreme, but it's kind of like how it is. You mean they really did that stuff? That really was going on? It's almost beyond belief, or we didn't want to believe it. So when that truth and reality finally comes out, I think people are just going to be flattened by it.
Well, it's like space aliens. If they do have space aliens and they do have all this stuff there would be paperwork, there would be funding for it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a perfect example of whoever, if there is those sort of things, whether it's the military or whatever, it's all a part of their budget, but we don't see what it is. Now multiply that by every other thing. I mean, that's like an obvious thing. Oh, we've got space aliens at Area 51 or something like that. And for all these years, it's been covered up. Okay, well, how did they fund that? Somehow that money would fund that. So I think we have all kinds of things where money is going into things, into this, that goes into that goes into this, that goes into that. And like you said, who knows where it all leads. But I did go to the Doge website, and they started coming up with a framework of the U.S. government with the department, and then the number of employees in this department, and then the sub-department and the number of employees in this department. And it is a monstrosity, the layers of government. Yeah. And then like there was an office for the Harry Truman Foundation that had 5 employees in it with an average salary of 100 and something thousand a year. What does the Harry Truman Foundation do? I have no idea. Maybe they do something good. I have no idea. But they got 5 people in that department that run the Harry Truman Foundation.
Well, that's...
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, what is it? I don't know what it is.
Well, that's how we know that 30% of the male mice in Ecuador choose to transition to female mice because of all that funding. That has proven it. How many millions of dollars we put towards stuff like that, right?
Well, I'm not against necessarily science, and almost every major university in the country, they're getting grants in order to study things, and that isn't necessarily a bad idea. But the thing of it is most of these things, are they necessary to be studied?
Who cares?
And also they probably have been studied before. Mm-hmm. Probably somebody in Argentina might have already studied it. So why are we paying for a study to find out the same results? And all these studies are all documented somewhere. Why do we need more studies?
Right.
And usually on the studies, by the time the money, it goes through so many, like if you go to the Doge website and you see all of the layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, there's whole departments that are set up just to be in charge of a department that probably doesn't do anything. You could probably cut out 30% of these departments and not miss a thing.
Finally.
Because what are they doing? How much of the money actually, like getting back to that senator whose wife is in the ocean business, when they give grants of $10 million, how much of it really is going to clean the ocean? I mean, it may have been one boat that went out one time and picked up a little load. How do we know? We don't.
Wait until they start digging into the Clinton Foundation. They're already talking about all those meals on over to those starving people in Ethiopia or whatever, that they're skimming the majority of it off the top, $86 million. Of course, that hasn't been completely verified yet, but it came out of the woodwork from somewhere. So who knows? Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But regardless if it is or not, you're going to see a lot of instances like that where people are able to siphon and skim that money. And they already have a pretty good idea. I want to end it on this. We saw Elon Musk talking to Joe Rogan on that podcast about just skimming money off the top. And he goes, it runs way deeper than that. Rogan said, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, I could get assassinated. They could kill me if I told you. He hasn't been uncovering and digging for that long, but he's already seeing things that will make your brain explode. He just can't believe what he's finding and what he's seeing. Once people find this stuff out, who knows what they'll do? I don't know if you could get better security than Elon Musk would have between what maybe Trump gets for him and whatever private security he has. If they can get to Elon Musk, they can get to anybody. And I'm sure he has his security beefed up to the max. But the things he's finding, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know if anybody's beyond reproach. If somebody came up to Trump and said, look, this is absolutely something we cannot have come out, either on one side of the aisle or the other. Who knows?
Aliens.
Yeah, right. Or that fake moon landing. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't even looked into that yet. But anyhow, Mark, look, we got to get rolling here. We're out of time already. It seems like only a minute ago we started, but it's always good having you on. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
And all you folks out there that tune in, I really appreciate your continued support, your great comments, your shares, your subscriptions. So until next time, stay the course, stay strong, and stay patriotic. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thanks again, Mark. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.